Views expressed here are not supported by and do not reflect those of the Evening Rush Network. Viewers' discretion is advised.
All right, 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 all right. You are now plugged in. Coming up in tonight's show, we have what we always do. We pay homage this week. Instead of giving the flowers this week, we pay homage this week. And then also this week, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do what we do always best is play, talk about these current events that we got going on out here. We ain't gonna do it round robin style this week. What we're gonna do is this week we're just gonna do it our old style where we just speak about it because the topics that we have is kind of it's pretty important. You know what I mean? So what we going we're gonna play with it in that sense. All right. And then on top of that, our topic of the day this week is youth wasted on the young. Modern day adolescence. What is it? All right. All right. So without further ado, you are now plugged in with Molly and Joe, the mental warriors.
Without further ado,
You
you
are
are
now
now
plugged
plugged
in.
in.
I'm getting a mean echo right now. We're gonna try to fix that. Technical difficulties. I think it went off. All right, here we go. So again, we're gonna start that all over. All right, you are now plugged in with Molly and Joe, the mental warriors, along with our new special co-host, Zachariah Israel. All right. Clap it up, clap it up, clap it up, clap it up, chop it up, chop it up, chop it up. All right. Our producer isn't where he need to be. I hope he's feeling well. Hope he get well. He's going through some things right now. So all those little effects that we normally would have, like the claps and all that other stuff, we might not have tonight, but we'll be all right. What you think, Joe? Joe, you on mute, Joe. We ain't gonna hear you.
Brother,
There
we,
you
we we make it work one way or the other. So you know what I mean. Listen, we can make the applause or the claps if we need to ourselves. So we be all right.
go. Indeed, indeed,
No shade, no shade, but we find a way to make it work. I promise.
indeed, indeed. All right, Zachariah, what you think?
I mean, we can hold it down until further ado.
Without further ado, all right. Well,
Just background voice and overs.
without further ado, we're on many platforms, and the platforms that we're on is all of the major platforms. We got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Anchor.fm, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Mixcloud, Google Podcasts, iTunes Podcasts, the Evening Rush Network, of course. And also we're on Amazon Music, Stitcher, Podchaser, TuneIn. Those are other platforms that we ventured onto. Also, you need to download the Evening Rush Network app. That's both available on Android and Apple. Okay, that's big things. I mean, like the Evening Rush over here doing big things. All right. So Joe, without further ado, how was your week, brother?
Man, my week was very interesting. I didn't realize Halloween was being celebrated like Christmas. I mean, people are taking days off, going out of town. And I'm just sitting here like, since when did Halloween become that much of a holiday? It's a surprise to me. I get people, you got the houses all ghouled up and things of that nature, but I guess it's just a way of the world, I guess. But no, my week's been good, very productive, of course, very progressive, and looking forward to the end of autumn, if you will, and the how the seasons go, and cold and hoodies, and football, of course, and basketball. So all those things are looking forward to when you're like in the mid of autumn.
All right, Zachariah, how was your week, brother?
Good, good. Busy and just trying to fit more things on my plate and learn to juggle what I got going on at the same time. But it's all good, man. Looking forward to this cold weather that's coming. It's already hit. Actually, you guys think I'm out here in Cali and it's sunny all the time. I'm in the desert, man. It gets like in the 30s and 40s at night. But that's as cold as it gets. Don't feel sorry for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the monotony of it all, just living life, sometimes you get caught up in it and then you don't even realize all of the blessings that you do have.
That's
So
right.
of course I'm still doing, the after school program, picking up the kids. We had an ice cream social. Remember that, Joe? We had an ice cream social.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, we had an ice cream social with the kids. Had them make their own ice cream from scratch. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was actually a beautiful event. What else did I do this week besides just picking up all these kids and bringing them to our wonderful program? Shameless plug, baller.org, BALAA.org. Um, Besides that, just dealing with, regular things in life. You know what I mean? Watching the news, seeing all of the craziness going on in the world, all the craziness going on in politics. Nothing really stuck out in my head this past week per se, but what I will say is that I'm always paying attention. So that's my week, in a nutshell. Um, I know in sports, I know the Knicks is 3-1. They playing the Chicago Bulls right now. I don't know what's your team, Zachariah.
I mean, I haven't really been following basketball like that. I'll be fronting to say I got a team. I just have certain players I root for. So yeah, not an avid fan like I used to be at all.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that. Joe.
Well, of course, I'm an Indiana Pacers fan, so I'm still rocking with the squad. We 1-4 right now. Yeah, but you know, what can I say? We always get these slow starts in the beginning of the season. It's only the first week, so
Hmm.
we play Brooklyn on Friday, so I'm hoping we can get it together.
At the very least, y'all may can, right? All right. So, what we do is, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna have Zachariah, he gonna work on this, but we're gonna have that moment where we're gonna just throw a little video screen up and be like, oh, okay, this is our paying homage moment. Ba ba ba, right? But
Yeah.
that's what it is right now. It's the I said, I hope y'all take that out.
By
It's
next week,
not. It's
Yo,
not.
yo, the Evening Rush Network boss is over here. He's an avid Brooklyn fan, man. Listen, you talk about Brooklyn, he gonna come at us. But right now, where we at with it. We paying homage to our ancestors. Last week, what we did is we gave flowers. We said those who would make our ancestors proud. This week, we're talking about the ancestors. So we're gonna pay homage to those that came before us. Joe, you kick us off, man. Who you got for us this week?
My ancestor is just the most recent one. We pay our respects to the late great Colin Powell.
What?
Colin Powell, born April 5th, 1937. He was an American politician, diplomat, and a four-star general who served as the 65th United States Secretary of State. And he also was the first African American, the first Black person to receive the Chairman of Joint Chief of Staff status, which he served from 1989 to 1993. Colin Powell was somebody that I guess maybe because he was considered, he deemed himself as a Republican later on in his years. He wasn't really popular with the Black community for a bit of time. But what I must say about Colin Powell, that I always admired, is that he tells the story of the immigrant American dream, Black immigrant American dream. His family was Jamaican, West Indian, came to Harlem, grew up in the Bronx, went to Morris High School, one of the big schools in the Bronx, and, found his call through ROTC, and then from there just worked his way up in the ranks as a soldier in the army and things of that nature. So it's good to hear stories like this because he served up until his very last days. And me being of descendants of West Indian immigrants, I understand that story very well, and I still kind of live like that to this day. Like, I'm here, I'm born, I I continue to work hard, and I know what that means in our community. So I pay homage to Colin Powell because he's a prime example of starting from the bottom and ending up on the top.
All right. Yes, sir. The great Colin Powell. That was a good one. That was a good one. All right. So Zach, who you got for us this week?
Today is like to talk about Nat Turner, who is not widely taught about in schools for obvious reasons. Once you know his history and what he actually did. So I'm just going to read a few highlights here. I don't really want to freestyle and leave things out that are noteworthy. African American slave preacher from Virginia who led the bloodiest slave rebellion in American history. In the 185 years that followed, his rebellion was minimized and reinterpreted, to say the least. And mainly one of his accomplishments, or what is noteworthy of his rebellion, is on August 21st, 1831. He led a small army that used axes, hatchets, and knives and muskets to kill 55 white Virginians. By August 23rd, the revolt was suppressed and his followers were apprehended. He escaped and hid in the woods for 2 months until he was captured and taken to the jailhouse in the county seat of Jerusalem, today known as Cortland, Virginia. He wrote what's called the Turner Bible, what is known as today, and it's actually on display in the National Museum of African American History, and it actually and the recent release of a feature film, which is called The Birth of a Nation, chronicling his life and the entire revolt. One more thing I'd like to add in. Between his trial and execution, he was interviewed by lawyer Thomas Ruffin Gray. The interviews were compiled in a pamphlet entitled The Confessions of Nat Turner, the leader of the late insurrection in Southampton, Virginia. This serves as the main historical record of who Nat Turner, the man that who he may have been, but it's an imperfect record, of course, because like all Black history, it has been whitewashed. But if you want to check that out, you can check it out, Confessions of Nat Turner. And I think individuals like him just like to be highlighted. I'm not an expert on Black history, but I just think after learning so many things that I didn't learn in school, I think Blacks and non-Blacks in this country should know what happened actually, during that time of slavery and before and after the Civil War. So Nat Turner, big ups to you. I actually have a friend who's named after him. So shout out to my boy Natu Virago Coleman.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, let me just intervene real quick. Zach, we know why Nat Turner is someone who's not talked about in American history, in African American history, rather. Yeah. But he should, he changes the narrative of how our history is. So, we need to talk about him more and let people know that there is an opposite of what history looks like.
Absolutely.
Right. And I believe I spoke on Nat Turner before, and like I said, to repeat, what these men have done in our history is actually a great thing. It's not something that we should, shun and be like, oh, okay, we spoke about that man, because I don't think we can speak about any of these great people enough to get the message across for people to do what they need to do to change their lives. You know what I mean? And that just segues into who I choose this week. And I chose Afeni Shakur for two reasons: because of her own work as a Black Panther activist. You understand what I'm saying? And a pretty dope sister in her own right. You know what I mean? She was also mother to Tupac Shakur, one of the great poets, of our time and of our generation. Whether you want to call him a rapper, whether you want to call him a hip-hop artist, whether you want to call him a gangster, whatever you want to call him, you can also call him a poet as well. And it has everything to do with this woman right here, Afeni Shakur, a former Black Panther activist and reformed drug addict. They always got to throw that in there because our struggles is always something they want to put along with our triumphs. You know what I mean? That's always something that they want to do. Afeni Shakur is known as the mother of Tupac Shakur, as I said, a successful rap artist whose murder in 1996 elevated him to cult icon status. Since the death of her son, Afeni Shakur has transformed his legacy into a multi-million-dollar industry by issuing her son's catalog of unreleased material. She used the proceeds from the Sales of these recordings and associated merchandise establish a charitable foundation that promotes arts education, something that's dear to my heart, which is, because I'm, dealing with Big Apple Leadership Academy for the Arts, which is an arts program dealing with the musical arts, the theatrical arts, culinary arts, whatever you might think of, where we're trying to do it. And these are the people that came before us that allows us to be able to do so, because being part of the Black Panther movement allowed us to gain some manner of respect amongst the elite.
Yeah.
She joined the Black Panther Party. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'm going to nutshell it there because I lost my space where I was at reading it.
Can I add something? Can I add something to that in regards to Afeni Shakur? She was actually arrested during a
That's what I was looking for.
event that was involving with the Black Panthers. She was actually a leader in the Black Panther Party, and when she was arrested, she was actually pregnant with Tupac the whole time she was incarcerated, and she actually fought her case from inside, studying law on her own. And when she I believe Tupac was born either right before she got out or right after. So that kind of speaks to who he became. You know what I mean?
Right. And then you were speaking to the fact that you had did some things with him as well, right? Correct?
We're gonna save that for next week. I'm gonna pay homage to Tupac next week. So,
but I did find my information. Yeah, she joined the Black Panther movement in 1964. Okay, she met at the meeting associate of Malcolm X. He was recruiting in the Bronx, and she just got caught up in the movement. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our next segment, because I have to give a shout out to Afeni Shakur, Nat Turner, and Colin Powell, who all left a great legacy for us to follow and to build off of. I salute you guys. Definitely. Okay, so on to our next segment, which is what we call our current event segment. We either do a round robin situation where we all get a minute to shoot at whatever little topic we throw out there. But this week, we're not going to do the round robin situation because we want to take a little bit of time out for all of these topics here today. All right. So what we got today is first and foremost, Joe, you had sorry about that. You had came up with this one here, right? Because you being a avid Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Mike Tomlin plays a big place in your heart. You understand?
Absolutely. I brought this topic up about Mike Tomlin because this is something that it happens usually during the season or at the end of the season where coaches are asked about joining other teams or college ranks, if you will. For a coach of Mike Tomlin's status, that's a sign of disrespect. And they wouldn't ask people that are at his level, if you will. Mike Tomlin is a top 5 coach in the NFL at the time, throughout his career. 15 years with the same team, never had a losing season, make the playoffs about 70% of his time. And these people have the nerve to ask him if he's interested in taking a college-ranked head coaching job. So I'm glad he went off the way he did the other day, because they wouldn't ask Bill Belichick that. They wouldn't ask Pete Carroll that. They wouldn't ask Sean Payton that. They wouldn't ask John Harbaugh that. They would only ask Mike Tomlin, and the reason why they do that, or they think they can get away with it, is because of his color. He's very criticized as a head coach, and he's done everything he needs to do, and then some. I brought this up also because last week we talked about the complications of being in the workplace for a Black person. Mm-hmm. And then that's an example. It happened like the week after we talked about it. So I said I had to bring this up because we just got a prime example of the difficulties of being in the workplace, especially when you're at the head of your position. I mean, it's not like he's a bad coach. He's like one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL over the last 15 years. So you cannot knock what the man has done,
Right.
under circumstances, but it seems like they always find a way to add some type of negative connotation to his story because of his skin color. But you won't do that to no other head coach.
Zachariah?
That's not black. And I hate the full race card in this, but that's what it feels like to me because it's
Nah, man, come on, man. It's not called pulling the race card when you're speaking something that's been going on for years throughout, not just sports, but everywhere throughout. Any black man in a leadership position, whether it be entertainment, civil rights, within any corporation, So yeah, you're definitely not pulling the race card, Joe. But what I was going to say to that is that reminds me of something I saw in the movie, and I can't pinpoint which movie it was. But you watch certain movies and certain scenes just have an impact on the way you view the world, and it speaks to what you've already seen and experienced in real life. And I just remember it was like a mother telling or a father telling his son that you know, you can't do what the white kids do and still win. You have to be twice as good. You have to be twice as smart. You have to succeed twice as more. Try twice as hard, and that's never going to change. And that's what the quote was in the movie, and it's sad, but that's the case today. You know what I mean? And as I try to be empathetic towards anybody who I deal with, and the plight of people whose shoes I can never walk in, but it's a sad case in this country that that's the way it is, and that's why these men don't need to be ridiculed. These men, especially like Mike Tomlin, they need to be highlighted for how hard they had to work to get there, and those accomplishments that they've achieved under that type of ridicule and pressure. I mean, come on, these are like superhumans. You know what I mean? So just to go through that with a strong sense of determination and strong spirit, strong will, and never break, that alone, that deserves to be highlighted.
And S&D, because I'm not going to I'm not going to go behind you guys and speak to the same thing over and over again, because that's just called redundancy. But Mike Tomlin always have got the short end of the stick when it came down to all of these issues. And also at the same time, as much as he might have gotten the short end of the stick, he was actually the spokesperson for the Rooney Rules, as they would say. The Rooney Rules being the rules where at least a few black coaches at least a black coach get interviewed for a job. So you can interview 20 white boys, you know what I mean, but they got to interview at least one black coach to not be fined, or to look like they're playing their part in being all inclusive. You
So
understand?
you didn't have to hire one; you have to just interview one.
Right. You didn't have to hire one. You had to just interview one. Exactly.
Well, here's an adjunct to the rule. As of today, they actually enhanced the rule where it can't be just one. It has to be multiple blacks and minorities now you have to hire.
Right.
As of today, and I think a lot of it has to do with the backlash of what took place the last couple of days with Tom.
But the funny part about that is that you have to make a rule about it as if it needs to be done, when all you have to do is just naturally do the right thing, is interview for the right guy for the job. Simple. But we're not going to. I'm listening.
I was just going to say one more statement to go back to what we were speaking to last week about affirmative action. That wouldn't even exist if there was actually a such thing as equal opportunity employment for the most qualified applicant.
Correct.
Very true.
And yeah, so that was one of the current events. Mike Tomlin, hold your head, brother. We here for you, man. The next one we're going to go to is Enes Kanter calls out Nike for promoting modern day slavery. You know what I mean? He's speaking about there's a province out in China who, is known for what they call sweatshops, if you will. You know what I mean? And in these sweatshops, Jordan, LeBron, all of these prominent black men, get their sneakers from these people. So Enes Kanter calls out Nike for promoting modern day slavery. What you think about that, Joe?
With Enes Kanter, I mean, he's one of the rare ones that do this. Mm-hmm. There's been many cases in the NBA specifically where the players have had to humble themselves due to international affairs. I think about what happened with China a few years ago and how they were going against some of the things that were happening there, and the politicians told LeBron to shut up and dribble. Shut up and play. It's like you can't have a point when it's affecting the bottom dollar. And then they didn't want to interfere with the international status of the NBA, so the NBA league told them to shut up and play. With Enes Kanter, I mean, he's not American, he's Turkish, if I'm not mistaken, and he understands. And I'm pretty sure a lot of players, if they had the opportunity, would speak out about it, but they know at the end of the line, there's going to be some type of consequence if they do. Correct. So I'm happy that he's able to do that, because the more people talk about it, it's got to be heard. It's got to be spoken on. So I'm happy that Enes Kanter is actually being a voice there. And I hope more players, put the money to the side and say, hey, I'm willing to take that fine, take that hit. But these are more important issues that we have to discuss them.
But that's an issue that's been going on, in all of these small, third world countries for decades, not centuries, in the sense of when you're talking about manufacturing and the such. Cheap labor is the thing when it comes down to them. What do you think? What do you think, Zachariah? Enes Kanter.
I mean, I'm speaking from I'm gonna speak from both sides. So, like, as a company, Nike started out doing that obviously for making the biggest profit you can, get your shoes made at the cheapest cost, and then sell it for 20 times what it costed to make it anyway. Which is like the smart business model for any business, right? Your markup should be well over 70% if you're going to be, for the cost of making it, if you're going to be a successful business. But I think the violation comes in when you have children, working these sweatshops, and
the morals.
Yeah, there's not even a comfortable workplace, provided for them, and they literally give them pennies that they can't even go home and feed their families with. So, especially a corporation like Nike, shame on you for not being able to pay your employees enough money to be able to go and pay their bills and feed their families at least. But on the other side, a lot of the players, unlike Enes Kanter, that are not speaking out, is because most of them are either involved with some kind of way with a sponsorship deal with Nike, or at least the big players that have that platform to speak.
Right.
And then either that, or Nike is also like a huge conglomerate in all of the sports world. They've taken over the deal to actually manufacture all uniforms for all sports. It used to be Adidas, even in the soccer world, and they've actually taken that over. And not to mention that they buy people's personalities and images as well, like they did Michael Jordan, Cristiano Ronaldo. So, you can't really speak out against them if you're wearing their logo on your chest. And you're
right, because they actually got the deal for the NBA right now. Nike is everywhere in the NBA right now. Yeah. I guess Enes Kanter is taking a big chance stepping out there against Nike.
I mean, but I still applaud him for speaking up about it, because regardless of just because you work for someone, that doesn't mean you have to keep your mouth shut. At that point, it becomes some type of tyrannical influence of the organization that you're not allowed to speak your mind anymore. Kind of like what's going on here in America.
Well,
there's no more freedom of
speech.
Very,
very clear to what's going on in America, and that's the problem. Like, I get that it's happening in China. I get that it's happening internationally, but we have our own issues here, and it's almost like it's being ignored.
Well, I'll say this: me personally, Nike will win any battle. They got all the lawyers. I've experienced being inside of sweatshops before, because I was doing fire extinguisher inspections, and as y'all said, these are some of the most inhumane conditions that people could be in. It's all hot, it's sweaty, it's cramped. You know what I mean? It's the air quality got to be low because all of the chemicals and the fabrics and all that other stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's here in America, so I can just imagine in a third world country what that looks like. You understand what I'm saying? So, with that being said, listen, Enes Kanter, shout out to you for speaking out about it. Is it modern day slavery? There's a lot more examples to what modern day slavery can be looked upon as, you know what I mean? Because I look at people just getting up to go to work as modern day slavery. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Because they wrapped our minds around going to work for their system. And that was the same thing that we woke up and did every day in the times of slavery. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did, we did, we did
Absolutely.
it every day. We were,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that was even going back to where it started from.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that said, we're going to come back and we're going to touch on maybe two more things, and then we're going to go into the topic of the day because a few of these topics did stretch, and that's the reason why we didn't do the round robin. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to get a word from our network, our favorite network, the Evening Rush Network, and hear what they got to say to us this week. All right, word from our sponsor, one of our
Looking
sponsors.
to podcast shows and do not know where to start? The Evening Rush Network can help you with that. Call us at 929-441-2417 or email us at theeveningrushnetwork@gmail.com for dates and prices. We got you for all your podcast needs. The Evening Rush Network. Tune in, subscribe, and share.
All right. I am back. All right, got a little. I took a nap in them little 30 seconds. I took a nap in them 30 seconds. The Evening Rush Network is where we stream from, as far as all the other networks as well. Sponsored by Baller, of course. You know, we're also on Instagram. That's plugged at plugged MJ. We're also being streamed. We're also live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Anchor.fm, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Mixcloud, Google Podcasts, iTunes Podcasts, and of course, like I said before, the Evening Rush Network. You can also download the Evening Rush Network app on both Apple and Android. We're also on Amazon Music, Stitcher, and Podchaser, and TuneIn. All right, as well as of this week. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue with a little bit with the current events because this one bothered me a lot, and that's the only reason why I want to bring it up before we go into the topic of the day, because we got a little time to get into the topic of the day. But prosecutors in the criminal trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. You know who Kyle Rittenhouse is? Kyle Rittenhouse is who, Joe?
Kyle Rittenhouse was the young, I guess you can call him young good fella, whatever the group was, the good boy. They were fighting against the protesters of the out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he shot two of them. Young. He must have been, 16, 17 years old? He was very young, but he's being trialed as an adult. And people are just paying sympathy for him. They're saying he did it in self-defense. You can't. They're not allowing them to call them victims. They're calling them.
They've even raised money for him as well.
Money, yeah, the good boys have raised money for him to get him out of jail, and they're not seeing the importance behind all this stuff. Like, that's a prime example of the blind leading the blind. Rittenhouse is blind because he's young. He doesn't know any better. But then when you got the other people who are supporting this nonsense, the people have gone so much in their ways, they're willing to support negative connotations. It's sad.
Right. So, because as you read the narrative, it's like the teenager who shot and killed two protesters last year in Wisconsin will not be able to refer to people. This is the prosecutors. They can't refer to the people he shot as victims. Okay. The judge ruled. What he said the defense attorneys may be able to call them arsonists or looters. They could call them anything else but victims in any other way. And that's where when you control the narrative, and that's why a platform such as ours, Plugged, a platform such as the Evening Rush Network, platforms such as all the other shows that's trying to independently control what is being said about our culture and about our people. That's why it's so important, because this is why it's so important, because they're able to change the wording and able to change the outlook on what this young man might go through in the future. All right. What do you say, Zach, to this situation? Because I know
it's definitely gonna affect the jury's view of the victims, I'm gonna call them, because that's exactly what they were. If you're out there protesting and someone shoots you because they don't like what you're protesting, I mean, they're trying to run away from the fact that it was racially motivated, And if you're gonna bring an AK, I don't care if he was 17 years old, which that's how old he was when he shot these individuals. He actually shot 3 people. 2 of them died. And you're gonna basically throw that out the window. Like, why do you bring an AK to the protest? Okay, so what were you protecting? You're protecting. They say that there was rioting and looting going on, so he's supposed to be protecting. That's what they're saying in his defense, that he was protecting the stores out there or whatever. But first of all, you 17 years old, you ain't protecting nobody's store. You're going out there with an AK. And if you were going and protecting somebody's store, then all you got to do is stand in front of the store. You ain't got to be running up through the riot crowd, right?
Right.
And at the same time, you engaging with the rioters, going back and forth with them. So you're not protecting anything. You're actually acting as the aggressor, you know.
Right.
And
So, like, we know the story. We know what he did. We know how it went down. If you follow the news and whatnot,
yeah, so
what I wanted to speak to more so is the why is the language so important in the court?
because it's gonna affect the jury's decision. Bottom line, I mean, if they're looked at as, you know, criminals, you know, I mean, first of all, if they're rioting and looting, does that warrant death? You know what I mean?
Right.
So even if they were criminals doing those things, is the punishment they got fit the crime? No. And we don't even know that they were doing those things. Those are alleged. And they're not
Right.
even being called alleged victims or alleged looters and rioters. You know what I mean? So yes, it's gonna affect the outcome of the trial. And this is an important trial because it's I mean, this is done over and over again. It's kind of like when you watch the news and they show, you know, someone that's involved in a case as the quote unquote alleged criminal. When the man is black, they show his mugshot. When he's white, they show his pretty boy school picture with a smile on his face.
Right.
You know? It's the same thing that we're talking about here. When you're in the courtroom and you address them as such, they're going to be looked at as such.
Yeah. So the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, we all agree that, you know, it's the way they're trying to write it out, and I guess this is trying to lead him to getting off on the charges, because there's the other things that the judge has been quoted as saying. But we're not going to spend too much time on that negativity. There's more negativity to get to, right? You know what I mean? Because you know what I'm saying? The monotony gets a bit much. But guess what? That's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that people understand that our fight in this war on our minds is never ending. So we're gonna go to our next segment. It's a quick segment. It's a segment that I think we're gonna grow to like and grow to love. Is You Know What I Mean? We're gonna have something on there too, right, Zach? Right? We're gonna have something on there that you know what I mean. Bing.
Every segment,
You know what I mean?
Right. So you know what I mean. And this year, I don't know. I mean, hold on. Is it going to pop up? I don't know if it's going to pop up right now. There it go. 35 years of Hollywood, historically based black films. All right. This is the numbers. This is how it got broken down. 60 of them are slave movies. It's 35 years. I'm actually 45 years old. No, yeah, I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46. Hey, actually, I'll be 46 this weekend. Stay tuned. Yeah. So, that's less, that's less time than I've been alive, right? So in those years, you had 60 slave movies, 20 war crime movies, 25 segregation movies, and 1 movie of African greatness. You know what I mean? Whereas it is noted and known that we had many years of greatness. You know what I mean? We had plenty kings. We had plenty times of good. We had plenty times of being people of, of substance and all that other stuff. But in this little meme, it says a lot, because again, what we said in the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, it's about controlling the narrative. If you control the narrative, it's always we're fighting in wars. We're either slaves or we're being segregated against. You understand what I'm saying? Now, to show us in any site any amount of power in a power situation, that's not something they want to do.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, even with the stories that they do try to tackle, like let's look at all the Egyptian stories. They whitewash them.
Oh, yeah.
They don't use black characters for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, Cleopatra, the perfect example of that. They
Yep.
keep telling everybody that Cleopatra was white, European. She was not European. She was African, an African from Egypt in Greece. And then, you know, you have a lot of stories like that where they whitewash or they make them non-black. And that's the case as well. There are stories out there, but they're not told in our nature.
Okay.
And then, like you said, you have so many other. I mean, we didn't talk about the countless drug stories. Those are a form of positivity. You know, every time you hear of a drug story or some type of negative connotation, they got to add a positive twist to it. So you got to talk about the struggle, but eventually the overcoming is what makes the story better. So that's how they're controlling the narrative. But
what is it? Yeah, Zachariah, what does this mean to you?
I mean, I basically agree. That's the narrative, and it's been the narrative. You know, you can even look like Black Panther. You know, the first real black superhero movie, right? We just had it after how many years of white superheroes, right? And which is probably one of my favorites of all the superhero movies. Anyway, I was walking out the theater like Wakanda forever.
it was so impactful.
But it's a big difference when you change the narrative, right? So I don't want to get caught up in that meme too long. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You know, because we still got to get to the topic of the day and we want to move it along. But yes, Wakanda forever, definitely. Topic of the day. All right. This one we mulled over, we checked it out, and we dissected it. And it's called The Youth Wasted on the Young, Modern Day Adolescence. Right? What does the phrase "youth wasted on the young" mean to you? The youth take things for granted. They're growing up too fast. What's going on, Joe? What do you talk to me?
Youth is a very valued lifestyle. You're young, you know. We as adults value our youth now. And what I mean by youth is the way that we live, the way that we're not able to do certain things anymore, the energy that we have or had rather, and we value these things. You know, youth have a lot of those things. You know, as you get older, you lose them. So when I talk about youth being wasted on the young, it's like a lot of today's younger generation don't understand the value of the youthinism that they have, the energy that they have, the style that they have. You know, it's being taken advantage of.
Zachariah, same question to you, brother. The youth wasted on the young. What does that mean to you?
I mean, you know, first of all, being that they're exposed to such to things so early on in life that we didn't get exposed to till later on in life because of the internet. And I think that they're not trying to grow up too fast. They're kind of being pushed to growing up too fast, and it's to help mold their minds into, you know, a certain path, you know. And they're kind of like guinea pigs at the moment, but you know that they're wasting their youth because they're so drawn by social media and by the narrative that's out there, the quote unquote agenda, that you know, they don't even realize that they're like trying to grow up too fast or learn these things so early and want to be counted as adults. You know, they're constantly being told you're not an adult. You know, the frustration, the aggression, all of this stuff. And you know, on another note, you know, every generation is softer, and it's because of what they're being exposed to as well.
Right.
You know, it's the sensitivity, you know, as well as you can't say that, you can't say this. No, you have to be politically correct. You don't weight shame. Don't say that. Don't say this. You know, and in our days, it was just called, you know, playing the dozens. You know what I'm saying? And they're not growing up jaded. They're growing up soft, and at the same time, they're also overly aggressive and overly emotional. You know,
Right.
so,
And those are some of the things that, you know, that's what it looks like when we talk about modern day adolescence. What does that look like, right? So you say youth wasted on the young. What does that mean to you? For me, it meant that, you know, it's exactly what it says, is that the youth don't understand what they have in their youth. You know what I mean? The energy, the strength, the opportunities. You understand what I'm saying? Whereas, you know, when I was a young man, there wasn't many older dudes that put in that amount of energy into us as the young men. They try to keep us out of trouble in a sense where it's like they didn't want us to get into too much, you know, too much into trouble in the streets and the such, but when it came down to resources and the such, it was never given to us. Whereas now it is given to these young men and women, and one of our writers wrote in, they take it for granted. You understand what I'm saying? And that's one of the ways the youth is wasted on the young, because they take for granted life itself. You know what I mean? That's the reason why you have all of this violence out there. That's why you have all of this nonsensical shootings of one another. Yeah, he said liquor store teachers. Yeah, you're right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was watching something on about Jacksonville, Florida, where they got these young men shooting at each other and killing one another and writing rhymes about it and doing songs about it, diss songs about the fact, I just murdered your brother, or I murdered your cousin. So they don't, it's taken for granted. They don't take no value in their youth, in their lives
I
at
mean,
all.
they're killing people on live, on
Right.
Facebook Live. You know,
Right.
that when you look at the artist King Von that died last year, was
Talk to the guns being brought into the schools, Sandy Hook.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
this the whole narrative of a certain genre of rap right now, where that's like the thing, to talk about what you did on your record. You know what I mean? And it's just promoting the violence out there.
Mhm.
So we had organizations like out here. We had the Boys Club, which I attended every day after school when I was a little kid. But as you grow older, at a certain age, man, the streets sound so enticing, and you just get led in the path where those organizations don't have the hold on you and the influence that.
Right.
You know,
Because when you got guns being brought into the schools, right? You got guns being brought into the schools at a rate like that has been unheard of, right? And you just got these kids with these guns in their hands. Forget if they got into the schools, they could be in the streets itself. You have Sandy Hook, you have all of these other different other school shootings. The one that happened in Florida where they just settled and they about to try to give this kid the life sentence and such. Somebody spoke about just this past Wednesday, a school safety officer recovered 3 guns for students at 3 schools in the Bronx and Brooklyn, and said then on Thursday morning, more guns at the schools in Bronx and Queens. So all of this violent, that's why I understand this statement. The youth is wasted on the young, because they don't even care about their lives.
No value. There's no value in today's life, and they're not being taught that their life is being valued at such a young age. They don't care about the value, and that's the problem. Like, just over the last month, we've, in New York specifically, we've seen so much. And it's heartbreaking, because I personally know people who have lost their lives at a young age when they had so much more to live for. And I feel for these young kids. I feel for them. And they're not being told that the value of their life is important. That's why all this stuff is happening. And there's nobody government-wise or official-wise that's brave enough to sit there and tell them your life means something. Let's do it.
I mean, official wise, because that's what we're doing. If I speak to the young men, are they going to listen? If Zachariah speak to the young men, are they going to listen? If Joe speaks to the young men, are they going to listen? You understand what I'm saying?
We do. We get the opportunities. Do they listen?
Right. So that's a question that I guess we gotta figure out the answer to another day. Because right now, what I want to know from each one of you, because we talked about modern day adolescence, because remember, we grew up in a certain era, right? So in us growing up in a certain era, it looked a certain way, it felt a certain way, it came across a certain way. What does modern day adolescence look like? You know what I'm saying? What's happening here?
Modern day adolescence, that's like a double-edged sword, if you will. Like, it's a good and a bad to it. Social media tech has definitely not helped. I'll give you an example. There was Chris Rock did a sketch, a comedy sketch recently. He talked about bullying, cyberbullying. He was like, "You're really losing your life over cyberbullying. Why don't you just turn it off?"
Yeah,
you're bullying by someone who's not there.
So
they deal with physical bullies.
So they're softer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely sensitive. Absolutely. So what does it look like? Here's the answer to your question. This is what modern day adolescents look like. I've seen 2 kids on a date, teenagers on a date, sitting at the same table. They're not even talking to each other. They're on their phone. Come to find out, they texting each other.
Poor communication skills.
You're sitting right across the table. And then, it takes away the socializing skills, at the same time. You know what I mean? So you're teenagers, and your number one method of communication is through your phone, you know, whether it be a social media app or text, and you're right in front of the person or you're right across the room. Go over there and speak to them face to face. It's dehumanizing us. You know
And
what
that
and
goes
why
to all
for the
communication.
youth? They're the targets. They're the targets. You're molding society from their age.
Right. So, because what the reason why I jumped in there is because I want to say that we outlined it, right? So, therefore, I guess we could just say this is our 8 points to what modern day adolescence looks like, right? So, right now we're saying being molded by social media, right? That's one.
Right.
Okay. Um, they're simultaneously social and antisocial.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. The effects of COVID on social and interpersonal skills.
Mm-hmm. The lack thereof.
Right. Poor communication skills. That's what Zachariah's story was speaking to. The poor communication skills. They they don't know. They on the phone when they right in front of each other when they should be communicating with one another in person. They want to sit there and text one another over the phone. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Easier access to societal influences due to the internet, meaning whatever's going on in the world, they're able to see and be a part of.
Or in their world, because it's
Mhm.
only what's relevant on your particular social media feed. So
Mhm.
if your feed, you're seeing a bunch of stuff, that's what you're going to be influenced by, or they going to
Absolutely.
be influenced by.
The youth are inexplicably angry and impulsive.
Yeah.
We
I
brought
like
that one up. We brought that one up
Mhm.
because there's no real conflict resolution anymore.
No.
Like there's everybody taught to be violent and volatile to every
Mhm.
situation, and that's how you respond to situations. You're not being taught that there are nicer ways or calmer ways to handle things. Everybody wants to be volatile, you know, and a lot of it has to do with the community that they're in, the outcoming, their outbringing, and just, you know, being around certain people. That's usually the first effect. I mean, look at what happens with reality TV. People don't respond well to peaceful organization. They respond to violence and volatile situations. That's
Correct.
what sells, you know. So
Isn't this the result of what we just talked about? Like, you know, with the lack of interpersonal skills, without the development of social skills, you lose. You never gain the ability to problem solve in a social environment, right? So you can't solve a problem like that. So now you're so frustrated because you don't have these skills that your first reaction, and because their heightened level of sensitivity to all these different so-called politically correct views and made up words for phobias and all that stuff. Now all of a sudden you don't know how to handle the problem. You get overly emotional, you get angry, and you want to handle it through violence or aggression.
And but then, like I said, the end result to anger is violence. Correct.
That's right.
The equal, you know, the opposite of the result of that is violence. But also, but it says as parents, we worry more now than ever before.
Absolutely.
Is that really true? Like, is that really true? Because I mean, who's to say our parents didn't necessarily worry at the same rate? I
I mean,
wouldn't
we
necessarily.
played outside by ourselves until the street lights came on. I wouldn't have my son outside running around the streets unsupervised like that right now. It's
You're
so much
right. You're right. You're right.
and
and
even
random shootings.
and even so, remember, we had more family like atmospheres growing up too, so there wasn't as much worry because if your parent didn't get to you, your neighbor would.
That's right.
Everybody's more individualistic now, so it's like every person for themselves.
Yep. So we had one of our writers speak about. He said they're more motivated by emotion than logic, which is also true because a lot of these things that we spoke on, like the social media, the social and antisocial stance, where I brought that up in our meeting because they will be just as social, like, oh, they want to be part of the party and this and the third, but then they want to stand on their own. Oh, I do this, I do that. It's only me. You know what I mean? I don't have no new friends. All these other different little weird logics when you're saying one thing and then you mean another.
Or you
You
feel
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Exactly.
YOLO, right? And my point
Mhm.
is, if you were able to think logically, you wouldn't use that phrase because if you only live once, shouldn't you try to get it right? You know what I'm saying? You only get one chance.
Right, you only get that one chance, right? Because also one of the things it says, what does modern day adolescence look like? They want to have adult like problems without adult like respect to those problems or to themselves. You know what I mean? They're not going to act like adults. They're not going to accept it as adults, but then yet they want to sit here and deal with it in adult like manners. And that's where I think you get all these senseless killings and all this violence that you get, is because they're dealing with, everyday life as if they're adults. You understand? And then,
Absolutely.
and then one of the last bullet points that we brought about, what does modern day adolescence look like? It's called FOMO. I don't know if anybody is good with the acronyms or what have you, but the FOMO is simply an acronym for fear of missing out.
Huh.
And I think not only do the kids suffer from that, I think adults suffer from that as well. You know what I mean? They just fear, on not being a part of, or missing out on, or not being part of what's going on in the now. You understand what I'm saying? So modern day adolescence, that's what it looked like, right? We spoke on the youth wasted on the young. What does that look like, right? Um, we are in agreement that something needs to change in this situation, correct?
For sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Talk to me, Zach. Give me some solutions.
I mean, okay, I'm gonna throw this out there from a standpoint of what a blueprint might look like, but obviously on the interpersonal level, it's going to be much different. But there needs to be more organizations that actually provide um, refuge, for lack of a better word, for the mental state of this youth, so that they can be involved in activities and learn skills, life skills that can help steer them to make the right decisions. And I think in order to make that happen, we need to speak to the things that are important to them. And also what ails them is what came out in the conversation that we were having about this. And I think that's important because the approach matters. You can't get through to anyone, much less a teenager, unless you're actually speaking their language, right? Or issues that are important to them or things that bother them, right? So if we're able to address them with that approach, but still able to steer them into programs and organizations that could actually guide them in the right path, I think that will be a healthy start. But there's so many different steps involved when it comes to achieving that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say that there is someone we are going to have on the show that's going to speak from their own experience about getting involved with the community and community leaders, and having the youth speak to them, to speak about their own problems and issues and concerns to help solve these same problems we're talking about. So, Jada, we're looking forward to having you.
That was somebody getting run under the bus.
What?
That was somebody going under the bus. Just real quick, just let y'all know somebody just went under the bus.
I mean, she's gonna be standing on top of the bus after this one, man.
Yeah. That's our secret weapon. We got her in the holster. We got her in the holster right now. So Joe, the same is to you. We could always speak to all of these negatives, like all of the things they want to kill each other, they gonna communicate, COVID, social media, they social but antisocial, they're angry and impulsive, FOMO, adult like problem, all of those different things, bro. We need solutions.
I got a perfect example for a solution, and I'm going to tell you what the solution is. You enforce authority. It works, parents. It
from
works.
young.
It works. It starts from the home. You build a foundation for your kids, and they will apply. I see it every day. I'll give you a perfect example. There was another story that we didn't talk about, and I wish we had, about what happened in Shreveport, Louisiana, with the kids and the fights at the school. The parents created an organization, the dads, called Dads on Duty.
Let's highlight them next week. Highlight them.
And since they've started that organization, they have had no problems.
What is it called? Dads what?
Dads on duty. And they're thinking about incorporating across the U.S. So it helps, enforce your authority. Parents, don't be scared of
Right.
of all these organizations, the
Yeah, the
BCW,
alphabet
ACW,
boys.
ACSs that make it so hard to parent.
That's
These
right.
things work. Enforce your authority. Let them know you're the parent. Stop trying to be their friend.
That's
Because you're
right.
not their friend. Don't be
No,
scared of your kids.
no, you're gonna lose at the end of the day
They
trying to be
do.
their friend.
They
Right.
do.
And you don't have to do that. Let them know it starts in the home. You be the example and show them that you can be a young person. You can have great examples around you. And the more positive examples that they have, the better that they will. And I know quite a few who do and are doing it. So
Right.
don't let this society influence them. You be their influencer.
Listen,
Absolutely, I
I,
agree.
I got a few nieces, nephews, sons, daughters that you know that can stand, you know, that make me proud. You know what I'm saying? I got a bro son over there out there in Hampton doing this thing on the drum line and whatnot. Listen, last year I wouldn't have thought of that, but guess what? With a good village and perseverance, that's where he is. You know what I mean? So that's where stronger positivity, you know, stronger positive influences at home and community influences. Those are the two things that happened in the last 2 years for that young man, and for every other young person I've been involved with in the last, I would say, 4 years since I got really knee deep into the community services. That's what Zachariah began to see about me in the last few years, to see that I've like come full circle in my life to manifest into who I am. You understand what I'm saying? So I know for a fact that community influences work. You know what I mean? Community-based organizations work, such as Baller, shameless plug again. But I have no shame when it comes down to that, because we're doing the work that we need to do. You
Just
understand what I'm saying?
every
We have to increase the awareness of resources, meaning it's not just Baller. You know what I mean? You got other programs out there. If you got BU out there, you got Steppers out there, you got Bareen out there. You got all of these other different programs that if you don't find a fit within Baller, go and find something for your kids to do elsewhere. You understand what I'm saying? It's not a competition. I'm not Macy's. I'm not the Gap. I'm not Polo. I don't need you to come and exclusively buy from me when it comes down to these kids. Nah, it's about these kids. You know what I mean? And that's where we spoke on one of the bullet points. We said the grassroots work, you know what I mean, that creates opportunities for change, agents to learn and understand youth at their core. We have to begin to understand our kids. We have to understand them. I know Joe understand the kids. I know Zachariah understand the kids. You know why? Because we stay 10 toes down. You know what I mean? We stay in the ground. We stay in these streets. We stay understand them, stay talking to them, stay trying to understand them. You know what I mean? And these are all of the things. These are all of the things that we do as men to try to steer these kids to the right path. You know what I mean? We got to develop programming that piques their interest and caters to their needs. Develop a recruitment and retention strategy. Instill the idea of paying it forward and giving back to the community, and create a resource life cycle to increase program longevity. Listen, all of that was said just now is all that Baller is about. It's all that any program in the community should be about. You understand what I'm saying? It's all that what Joe should be about. It's all that Zachariah should be about. It's all that I'm about. It's all that Dawn is about. It's all that Jada's about. It's all that anybody that's watching this is about. You know what I mean? We want to create opportunities for change. All right?
there's before you end on that note, there's two programs within the community out here in LA. One is called Yola, and it's a musical program that started in a school, an elementary school in Compton, where they started out a music program to provide instruments and teach the kids music that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it. And they're starting them out as early as age 6 to give them that sort of development and that mindset to know that you also can get into classical music or learn to play an instrument. There's another program at a high school in South Central LA that opened a music studio where the music teacher actually put his own money into it to open a music studio, and actually has kids coming to record raps and just create a sense of community. And he says he won't let them in unless they have a certain grade point average.
And
So
that's what's up. And that's what we need. We need more of those. We need plenty of those. There was a youth center that was actually opened up here in Brooklyn recently at the Armory over there on Bedford Avenue. Maybe myself, Jada, we'll go over there and figure out what we could do over there. You understand what I'm saying? That's what is needed. You know what I mean? We need to connect and unite, you know. Any last words, Joe?
Well, since y'all gonna pull plugs about programs, I might as well pull plugs about my own. I mean, I can't leave me hanging. Well, I live up in Harlem. There's so many different institutions that you could go to. It's been around for years, as long as I've been born. The Boys and Girls Club of Harlem being one in particular. Harlem School of the Arts being another one in particular. You have your Graham Wyndhams. You have your Harlem Dowlings. You have Youth on the Move. So many programs that focus on impacting these youth, the children, and the development of them. They just, keep providing the kids. And that's one of the things one of my teachers told me recently. He said, whoever's in that circle, the kids will continue to come. Generations will go by. So this is a never ending task for us to do. So it'll always be available to us. So
Right.
You have to believe that we're doing it and continue the program. And that's all. We're here. We ain't going nowhere.
Zachariah, any last words?
Nah, man, I think we set it off. I want to end on that note, man. Give Joe his shine right there.
That's right. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Yo, listen. It's always a pleasure to have you, Joe, to have you, Zachariah. This is Plug with Molly and Joe, and we the Mental Warriors, along with our brand new, shiny co-host, Zachariah Yisrael. One of my mans. I think I go back about 20 years. Love you guys, man. I love the fans out there, man. Listen, we're gonna get more and more fans. I know people don't even know they ready for this yet, but y'all will be. All right. So with that being said, peace.
Peace.